Welcome to the Equine Vet Connect podcast. I'm your host, Dan Carter. I'm a veterinarian and a farrier. The goal of this podcast is to educate horse people, break things down, bust myths, and keep it real. Speaking of breaking things down, here's my legal disclaimer to keep my attorney and insurance company happy. While I am a vet, I may not be your vet. Contact them before trying anything you hear on this podcast. Remember, just because you watched it on YouTube or heard it on a podcast does not mean you can do it. Please use common sense.
Okay, good morning, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Equine Vet Connect podcast. I'll be your host this week. My name is Dr. Zoe Latimer, and I'm here with Dr. Caitlyn McCaulley and Regan White. Welcome, Regan. This is her debut on the show this morning. You are stuck with all of us this week because Dr. Dan is on vacation with his family. They're on spring break, and Dr. Caroline, she's on her honeymoon, even though she got married last fall. They're celebrating their honeymoon this week, so you're stuck with us. But Reagan is currently on clinics at Auburn. She's a vet student over there, and she's gonna hang out with us this morning, and we're gonna kind of go back and forth and go through what it's like to be a vet and the process to getting to be a vet, and what it's like getting into vet school, and basically going to title this one "So You Think You Want to Be a Vet" and the steps to get there. Yeah.
So we'll kind of go through and kind of briefly introduce ourselves, our journey, kind of what, when we graduated, all those good things. So I went to undergrad at The Ohio State University, and then I went to Auburn for veterinary school. I graduated in 2022, and then I did do an internship for a year. So that's kind of my brief overview of my journey so far.
Reagan?
I am Reagan. I went to Auburn for undergrad, War Eagle, and then I am at Auburn for vet school now. So I'm in my third year, and I'm graduating in 2026. Still deciding my next steps after vet school, but definitely want to do equine medicine.
Perfect.
Yay. We've loved having her here this week. She's an extern with us this week and next week. So that's one of the requirements for being in vet school is you've got to do some externships at other hospitals around the country, kind of your choosing a little bit, and wherever you want to go and get experience. And she's with us for 2 weeks, so we've enjoyed having her. She's just finishing up her first week. So, and I'm Dr. Zoe Latimer, as you may or may not know, but I went to school at Georgia for undergrad and for vet school. I'm a double dog, woo woo. I graduated college in 2016 and then vet school in 2020. And I've been working here since 2021, and it's been a good time.
Yeah.
I love it.
So we'll go through like what we would recommend, or kind of like what our journey was to get your experiences to be able to actually apply to vet school. There's a lot of requirements to get in and to fulfill your application, and Zoe applying in 2016, I applied in 2018, you applied in
2021.
Yeah. So that's why we wanted to bring Reagan on today.
You
because
applied after COVID.
Yeah.
So in the midst of COVID. Oh, what a mess.
Yes.
So lots of things change with the application every year, but there's some constants about what they're looking for as far as an applicant. So you definitely want to, starting as early as high school, honestly, get as much experience as you can. I know when I applied, they had broken it down into kind of like animal experience hours and then veterinary experience hours, and so you can kind of group those, but literally keep track of everything you do all the way. Like as soon as you decide, like maybe I want to go to vet school, like write down all your experience, like just jot a couple notes down, keep it in a notebook, but like
doesn't have to be formal.
It doesn't.
No.
And the majority of mine was not formal, so I didn't actually set foot into a veterinary clinic until I was an undergrad.
Really? Wow.
Yeah. So that was that's a little different for me. Most of my animal experience hours came when I was in high school. On the farm that I learned to ride on, they raised sheep for fiber and meat, and then also they had foxhounds and horses and a little bit of cattle, and so I got a lot of animal experience hours there. And you can also, if you have your own animals, you can count those hours that you're working with them as animal experience hours as well. So like keep track of all of those, and then if you do get into a veterinary clinic, obviously keep track of that too.
For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Like you can start back as far as you want to, but I kind of started essentially in high school, and I just kept a notebook basically of all your experience hours, but everything from cleaning stalls at a horse barn, you know, because I worked off, I boarded my horse and I worked cleaning stalls to get money off of my board, and I consider that because it is animal experience. I worked on my family's farm. We have a dairy goat farm, so you can consider all of that. You know, we vaccinate, trim hooves, deworm. We basically work the herd, all those hours. You know, like anything that you can come up with. Work at, you know, small animal clinics. Even if you're cleaning kennels, does not matter what you're doing. Even if you're taking out the trash,
You got to start somewhere.
you are in the clinic doing something. It doesn't matter what you're doing, so it all counts. So just keep track of those things.
And like every time, even especially when you get into your like veterinary experience hours, when you are with a veterinarian or under the supervision of a veterinarian, like just jot down like, oh, this is a procedure that I saw today, or this is a skill that I learned today. Like just keeping track of all those little things, because they add up. I mean, you'll have, like I had thousands of hours by the time I graduated, because I kept track of everything. So it's huge.
Yeah, I had like 5,000 hours or something by the time, like when I put it on my application, because by the time you count all those little hours, it adds up. But you also along those same lines, I remember talking to one of my advisors who was talking to me about the application process, and he was like, they want to see diversity in your experience. So he was like, even though you have your heart set on going to vet school to do large animal, they want to see that you are not so tunnel visioned, that you're not also gathering experience in other areas. So he was like, you need to go and volunteer at a zoo. He's like, you need to go, just go for like 2 days. You need to go and do some small animal stuff. You need to go and do basically some exotic work, like not just horses and goats, in cows.
And that's the thing about veterinary medicine, and it's so multifaceted, and there's so many things you can do, like not even just in practice, but research and like government work and regulatory work and everything. Like there's so many facets of it that they like to see people that have dabbled in a little bit of everything and have experienced everything.
Exactly.
Because then I always say, like, you have to experience all of it to make sure that you really want to do it.
Yeah.
Like, because it is a huge commitment. So they want to see that varied experience so that they know you're serious and you know that, you know, there's a million roads you can turn down, and you've kind of looked at all of those.
The way he told it to me was, he was like, there's 1,000 other crazy horse girls that are trying to get into vet school to be a horse vet. He was like, to set yourself apart, you want to show that you have not just 5,000 hours working with horses, but you have 5,000 hours doing this and this and this and this. And he's like, don't forget that they also want to see a well-rounded person. They don't want to just see that you've worked a ton of hours in a vet clinic. They want to see that you were an office member in some clubs. They want to see that you were working in research and doing sports,
right?
And like you were not just so like, they do not like tunnel visioned people. They want to see a well-rounded person, not just like, all I did was work on a horse farm and work in a vet clinic and that was all I did. They want to see that you, like you said, like dabbled in a bunch of different things, and you did sports, and you had a lot of extracurricular activities. And I was in a sewing club and a running club, and I was not in a sewing club. I'm just giving that as an example. Like that you did other things. Like you were like, I did art and I did this and did that, and like so that you just show that you're a more interesting person.
I think now too there are, and you can speak to this, Reagan, because you obviously applied after I did, but I feel like they are really interested in people who have really strong communication skills. So like if you worked reception, or you were a server, or you were, you know, in some capacity where you were really have to communicate effectively with people, I think that that's a big thing that they're looking for. And then also like research, I think, is becoming a lot bigger.
I would say it's a big point in most application cycles now. Like I did research, and most of my interviews, I was asked more about my research than I was about my veterinary experience.
Yeah. Well, we didn't do interviews at UJ, but they were very, very interested. Like they asked a lot of questions about the research that I was doing. But yeah, it's a big selling point as well. Like you don't even have to do your own research, just being part of a research project.
I was a research assistant at the vet school because I was lucky enough to have the vet school close to me. But during my Auburn interview especially, they asked me like, what did you learn about it? What, you know, skills can you take forward into vet school and stuff like that. And just the time management, they want to see that you're doing other stuff with school and you're not, a 4.0 is great, but if you have a 4.0 and you've done nothing else, that's not realistic for going into veterinary medicine either.
Right.
That's a very good point.
That you can maintain good grades and do lots of other things.
Right. Exactly.
And be a real human at the same time. Yeah. So, I don't know if, I feel like they're emphasizing this more while you're in vet school, but I'm kind of wondering if they're looking for this in the application too, but like a business aspect, like do you have any business education? Like do you have any, because I feel like at least at Auburn they're kind of pushing the business education side of things a little bit to prepare people to own practices and things. And so I wonder, I'm curious about that.
They should.
Yeah.
They should. I don't remember them asking me any questions like that.
I was asked in a couple interviews. I did end up getting a business minor at Auburn because I was interested in business and like potential like practice ownership and stuff like that. And they all were like, well, what made you want to get this business minor? And I kind of said personal finances, owning a clinic in the future. It was a big, I think, part of my application that set me apart potentially for sure.
Yeah.
Because like I wasn't asked, like I said, about, oh, you worked this many hours at an equine hospital.
Because everybody has that.
Because everyone has that.
Yeah.
Like you need to set yourself apart is the biggest thing.
Yeah.
I would say for sure.
Yeah. So then I guess like once you've gotten all those experiences and you've accumulated all that, and then you're looking at getting ready to apply, I think the biggest thing that I kind of started to do at the end of my junior year of undergrad going into my senior year was, or even earlier, I guess, was kind of looking at, you know, what schools I wanted to apply to. And then you have to dive into what classes do they require, like what prerequisites do they require, because they're all slightly different, just to make our lives a little difficult. So you have to look at all of them and like say, you kind of have to narrow down like where do you want to apply to, and have I met all of their requirements, so that while you still have enough time in undergrad to get those classes done. So that was something that I, like I said, started to do towards the end of my junior year, going into my senior year. There's a website that I cannot remember the name of. I'll have to look it up and we'll have to post it, but they have like a whole spreadsheet of every veterinary school in the country and like, do they require this class or not, basically. So that was really helpful for me to go through.
I would say to match up like classes, what I did my junior year too is I took that spreadsheet. I don't remember where it's from either. But I took the programs I was interested in, deleted their other programs out of the spreadsheet, and then married it up to my like class schedule and my like grades and stuff. And I was like, okay, where do I see, like, where would I be a good applicant? Don't apply somewhere just because you're like, I love this program. I think it's good to be smart about where you're applying to. Like, do they put more emphasis on your last 45 GPA, like credit hours? Do they put more emphasis on the science GPA, experience? Like, you can kind of tell the vibe between each program too, because applying is expensive. Applying is time consuming, and you want to put your best foot forward for every single application too.
And I think too, looking at schools as far as like, personally, will I thrive there with my personality and like what I like to do, and like is this an area that I can do a very rigorous program for 4 years and be like okay? Because I remember when I applied, I thought I was going to stay at Ohio State, and I interviewed there, and I was like, absolutely not. Like, I don't think I can thrive here. And then I went down to Auburn and interviewed, and it was completely different. And so like looking at programs kind of from that lens as well, can I stay here for 4 years and be happy is also huge.
I would definitely agree with that. We talked about that in the truck
Yeah.
the other day. Like, it is important because, like, yes, you're going to be at the vet school for a lot of hours studying, of course, but you want to be a human outside of it. Like, do you feel comfortable in the area you are? Is your family close? Is it not close? Like, what factors are important to you outside of life too?
Yeah.
Because it is 4 years of your life. So you need to put that into perspective for sure.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And of course, tuition costs and in-state versus out-of-state, and can you establish residency, and all of those things go into it. But honestly, at the end of the day, like, yes, be very smart about your finances, budget, and do all of those things, and save as much money as you can. But it's an investment in yourself and your education at the end of the day. Like, I have a lot of student loan debt, but like, I'm very happy. I'm very fulfilled. I think it was worth it, and I couldn't do this if I hadn't gone to vet school. So, you know, it's an investment, and it works out at the end of the day. You just have to be a little strategic about things sometimes.
Yeah.
So, oh gosh, I guess talking about the application itself.
The VimCast.
VimCast.
Dun, dun, dun.
Oh,
Well, see,
gosh.
I understand that you guys don't have to take the GRE anymore.
So the GRE is definitely getting phased out. I was
yeah.
super lucky that the programs I applied to, the only one I needed it was Auburn. And the day I was going to go sit for the GRE, Auburn released they were no longer requiring the GRE.
You're kidding.
I
would've
said,
walked out.
cancel the GRE. I got my little bitty refund back. I was like, that's fine if I don't have to sit through it. That's
Nice.
okay with
You
me.
didn't have to do it. Oh, I'm
and
so jealous.
the
That
new-
was 8 hours of my life. I'll
You'll
never
never
go back.
So annoying.
Or 6 hours, or however long
Yeah.
that test
Too long.
took.
It was just too long.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now the big test is the Casper.
Okay.
So a lot of schools are doing Casper instead of GRE,
What
which
is it?
So it's an interesting test. I liked it. Most people don't enjoy it, but it's like an ethical reasoning test. So
Interesting.
you sit in it, it's all online, and you're given either videos or written statements about like ethical situations, and it's supposed to gauge like how you are like reasoning through like workplace conflict, like colleague conflict, stuff like that.
Okay.
So like an example would be like, you walked in on like a medical malpractice of a fellow like doctor. How are you going to approach that?
Oh.
Yeah. And then it does give you a score. I will say a lot
Do
of
you answer like essay format, or like, oh?
Yes. So it's all typed and it's all timed. So it's a little stressful because like your time's like running out and you're like halfway like typing. So
You're like, I have to finish my thought.
yeah, I think they give you like 3 or 5 minutes to like give a response. I can't remember the exact time, but it is short. I do
That's
remember
crazy.
that.
They don't want you thinking too much about it.
No, they
just
want
you
your
to, like-
honest opinion.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really
So
stressful.
if they give you too much time, then you're going to just sit there and not tell what your like instinct would be.
Would be,
Yeah.
exactly. So
Yeah.
it's an interesting test. They give you a score at the end, but I think a lot of schools are not really like heavily weighting on it right now. They're still kind of trying to feel out their
See how it
thoughts
goes.
about
Yeah.
it. Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure.
Right.
Yeah.
Because our requirement was to do the GRE, and then we had, well, at the end of vet school, we had the
NAVLE, yeah.
Yeah, the NAVLE, but
But yeah, so you'll have to take some sort of
Standardized
something before you get your application submitted. And then the application has several sections, or at least it did when I applied. And so like you have your experience hours, you have, there's usually 3 pretty decently sized essay questions that you need to answer. And then you have to input all of your grades, your, every experience that you've had, essentially, all your classes,
Yep.
everything. And then each school usually has a supplemental application to fill out as well. And so you've got to go through and select which schools you want to apply to, fill out their supplemental applications, pay the fees, do all the things.
So I'm actually I'm good friends with somebody who sits on the board at UGA, and he told me that the essay part, everybody kind of like blasts through it, and they're just like shh, whatever. But the essay questions is actually one of the biggest things they look at.
Really?
Yes, at Georgia at
Yeah.
least. And he said the reason why is because they don't interview at Georgia, and they look very, very heavily into the essay questions because they want to see if you're an effective communicator. He was like, we don't want somebody who can't tie their own shoes, like. But
Yeah.
I think that at UGA they would probably benefit from doing interviews.
Yeah.
Hopefully they'll move towards that model. Because there's quite a few students, and like Georgia's kind of known for pushing out students that are not super communicative.
And it's not just Georgia. I've heard so personally, I didn't apply to any school that didn't do interviews.
Yeah.
Because for me, I felt like you can look really good on paper, but like I want them to know me as a person, and I want to know that if I fit, because it's not just an interview, they're interviewing you, but I can also interview the school and say, like, when I did my interview at Auburn, I asked them, I was like, basically you and Ohio State are in my top 2, like what sets you apart, like why should I pick Auburn? And they had an answer for me, and I liked the answer, obviously. So like that part of it was important for me too. So like I personally didn't apply to any schools that didn't interview, and I think it's really important, because I agree, I do think a lot of those schools can admit and turn out some candidates that kind of struggle to communicate and be a really great practitioner off paper. And this is not to say that they're any less or anything, like those schools are still great, but I do think that the interview, like I think it's important. I think it's really important.
Yeah, I bet they will move towards it, but honestly, I don't know, but
then those schools get so many applicants. I think this year they had like a crazy number, like thousands of applicants qualified, and I think it was like 2,700. And how do you weed through all of those effectively without an interview?
Well, he told me basically the process they go through is like, because he's like, basically this was back in 2016 when I was applying. And basically they go through whoever doesn't have the GRE score, they were looking at, I think, if I remember correctly, the number was like a 308 was the minimum. I think that was the number, or 309.
I couldn't remember.
I don't even know how the GRE score.
If anybody had less than that, immediately the application was thrown away. That was like, boom, okay, minimum GPA. If you didn't even have that, boom, out. And then it was like, they don't even look, they look at your science GPA. And if you didn't have that minimum, boom, you were out immediately. Like they didn't even, and then they look like very heavily into the essay questions. And they were like reading you, or like your syntax and your grammatical errors, and like if they felt like you were a very like interesting person, like you like could grab somebody's attention. So
the other big part about the application is the letters of recommendation. So you have to have I had to have 3. And those they want to be varied as well. They don't want 3 small animal. If you want to go into small animal, they don't want 3 small animal practitioners to write your letters of rec.
They want to see them from.
And so I would say networking is also huge. I mean, in every aspect of veterinary medicine, from when you're first starting to think about applying until, now, like I call people all the time that I have met along the way. I'm like, hey, what do you think about this? And so networking when you're getting started thinking about applying is also huge, because then you can start to foster those relationships and get really good letters of recommendation.
And making sure that when you're getting a letter of recommendation that person has a good reputation.
Yes, a good reputation, and they can also write well with good grammar and syntax and word choice and all of those things. So
and they don't have to be a doctor to have a good letter of recommendation. That is where a lot of people trip up. You can have a very, very important letter of recommendation from somebody who's not a doctor. That is really, really an important thing to say. You can have somebody that could really like put your application forward, and they don't have to be a doctor.
Not at all. My advisor wrote one of mine in undergrad.
Same.
And he'd actually tried to talk me out of going to vet school because he wanted me to be. He was my anatomy and physiology professor, and he was wonderful. And I loved anatomy and physiology. And he was like, "Don't you want to work on like healthy animals all the time?" And I was like, "No." But he wrote me a really good letter of recommendation. So but so they can come from all over the place and choose people that, like Zoe said, have a good reputation, but also know you really well.
Yes, if they can't speak to you as like, basically if you have like, if you've only worked for them for like 5 minutes, that person is not gonna.
It's gonna be superficial.
It's gonna be a very superficial letter of recommendation.
You can tell very quickly.
You want to you want to like get a letter of recommendation from somebody that you would feel comfortable sitting down and eating dinner with them, and like you could have a conversation with them, like to an extent, like you would know them that well. Because then they could talk about you on paper and like talk you up, you know, rather than just like, oh,
she showed up to work.
yeah, she was
And she
nice.
was nice. Yeah, like that's not going to get you anywhere. Yeah, literally. I think a big piece of advice I was given by my first mentor in small animal for letters of rec, she was like, don't just ask for a letter of rec, ask for a strong letter of recommendation.
Yes, yeah.
Because if they feel like they can't write you a strong letter of recommendation, you don't need it on your application. Because like you said, a weaker, very generic cookie cutter recommendation, they're going to
don't
see
want generic.
They're going to
Yeah.
see right through that.
Yeah.
Like they're reading a ton of these, and
They don't want like a copy and paste letter of
Exactly.
recommendation. They want one that's personalized to you, and the only way to get that is to have like a real
relationship with someone.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they will call. None
Yes.
of mine,
Oh, yeah.
none of mine got called, but they will.
They do.
They will call your letters of recommendation if they feel like something's a little off or they want more information on you. So,
Yeah.
with your experiences too. So make sure everything you're putting on your application, no one's going to have a bad thing to say about you.
Yeah. Yeah. I guess we didn't even talk about like what majors we chose in undergrad and like how to
yeah.
navigate
Oh,
that
yeah.
whole thing. Yeah. So I was an animal science major. I did animal science with a emphasis on bioscience, I guess it was. I forget how we worded it, but yeah. So yeah, I went straight for animal science because it got me most of my prereqs out of the way in my normal curriculum, and so that I only had to add like I think 2 or 3 classes to my normal curriculum. Yeah, so it was easy. But I had classmates that were like music majors and like other crazy things that were not sciencey at all, but they got all their prereqs done and they could still apply.
There was a girl in my class where she was an art major.
Really, that's cool.
We also had a woman who had a whole ass career
We
being
have
a
a
lawyer.
couple of those too. She was an accountant. Shout out Jennifer. But yeah, she went back and did the prereqs, and she's thriving in the program.
One of my best friends was an engineer, and she was like, "Screw this," and went back and went to vet school. And then another one of my friends, she worked as a tech for the circus actually for 5 years.
Whoa,
Oh, okay. Talk about getting set apart. That's really cool.
That is
Yeah.
really neat.
Yeah, she's awesome. But yeah, so like we had lots of non-traditional students in our class and like lots of people that took different paths and different majors, and that's just part of what makes vet school cool. Like
When
it's
people
just
say, like, because people ask me all the time, I'm too old to go back to vet school.
No,
I'm like,
you're
no,
not.
you're not. Because I had people in my class that were like in their late 40s. So I'm like, no, you're literally
I
not.
did too. I had classmates with kids. I had classmates that were in their 40s and decided to finally go for it. Like my friend who worked for the circus, like she she turned 30 while we were in vet school, and she was like, it's fine.
Yeah.
And like it's
You're either going to be 30 doing what you love, or you're just going to be 30. You're going to turn 30 either way.
Yeah.
So don't let that discourage
Yeah.
you from going back.
definitely not.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When I was in undergrad, I double majored actually because the majors were really closely related. I was animal science and dairy science.
Nice.
So, and then I was a waitress for 2 years. Worked
this
at
is good.
Mama
I'm glad we're
Sid's
talking about this.
Pizzeria. Yep, I was a waitress for 2 years. And I worked at, the horse barn that I boarded my horse at. Consistently, that was like, I worked there for a long time. And then I also worked at the Large Animal Research Unit, the LARU, and I also worked at there was a veterinary bioresources facility at UGA where we worked on research animals like dogs, cats, ferrets, rats, monkeys, and I was like just a caretaker and cleaned cages and took care of the animals and fed them, and I was supposed to like play with them like the dogs and cats. Like I'd teach the cats to play fetch and stuff like that. Like it was like enrichment and all that kind of stuff, and had to like shower in, shower out, dress into their scrubs and like all that kind of stuff. And that was a really hard job, that research job. But then working in the LARU, we worked with research pigs. I was actually a little bit part of the research project where they were, I don't know if you guys heard about where they were doing the research project on the stroke pigs, where they were inducing strokes and then fixing them with stem cells. That was a cool project. So that I was not like, I was just taking care of the pigs. I'm like,
Important part.
I don't have a big brain. Like I'm not like super smart, but I was part of that project. In a small way. I did my little small part. But yeah, so like I did a lot of research when I was in undergrad, or being part of a lot of research when I was in undergrad, and then worked a little bit at the dairy, worked a lot at horse farms, and trying to think of any other jobs I did in undergrad.
I did not work during undergrad because, like I said, I didn't really set foot into a veterinary clinic until I got to
I worked at a vet clinic.
Yeah.
Yep, I worked at a small animal vet clinic.
So
yep.
I like beat-bopped around while I was in undergrad and like tried to get my veterinary experience hours at that point.
Right.
So that's what I did instead of working. I did a lot of volunteer hours then. But in vet school I did work. So I worked for my first 3 years of vet school in the equine ICU as a weekend technician basically. So that again with the networking was huge because by the time I got to clinics everybody knew who I was and they trusted me and they knew that I knew what I was doing. So I got to do everything.
Yes.
So then in my clinical year I was a student resident at Auburn. So I did that as well.
On all of my holidays, like Christmas break, I would always work at Piedmont Equine, which is right down the road. And like on every single summer, I would work either at, so there was also, I worked one summer and like into a school year also at a small animal clinic. I was a tech. And then another summer I worked at, Durham Vet Clinic in Greensboro. They were a mixed animal practice, so that was really fun. I liked that clinic. That was one of my favorite summers. And then worked another summer at Piedmont Equine again. I worked for them for 7 weeks, I think, that summer.
Yeah.
Those were all volunteer hours, though, like working at Piedmont Equine. But so yeah, taking advantage of like your breaks and all that kind of stuff. And then during the school year, I would work and make money. So,
Yeah. So then I guess we kind of touched on it a little bit as far as like what career paths you can go down, which is literally anything you want. I have classmates that are in government. I have classmates that are in, one of my friends works for the USDA.
Although a lot of my government friends are a little scared right now.
Yeah, for sure.
Yes. Yeah, for sure. But she works for the USDA. My other friends all work in small animal and exotics. One of them does a lot of emergency work. A lot of my classmates actually went into small animal emergency work, and
So did mine, and a lot of my friends do relief work, and they love it. They're making really, really good money, and they don't work that much. They work like twice a week. They make way more money than I do.
I'm like $1,000 a shift.
They get paid like $1,200 a shift.
Yeah, that's crazy. Yeah. But yeah, and then obviously private practice. A lot of my friends have gone on for internships and residencies and are trying to get boarded to become a specialist, go back to academia, or become a specialist in private practice.
Actually, it's really cool right now. I've been out of school for so long that a lot of my classmates have just gotten their residencies over with, and they're all getting like boarded. So like it's really cool to see like what people become. Oh, y'all so like.
I'm still friends with like my entire vet school class on Facebook, and so like I still get to like watch what they're all doing, and like so many of them are like having families and having kids, and like it's just it's just exciting. Fun. Like just vet school it's so hard, and like I remember being the first day of orientation, and they're like, this is not a competition. Like you're all here to help each other. They're like, do not compare your grades. Do not talk about like just don't be competitive. Like you're all have been so competitive just to get in. Throw it away. Help each other. And it's true. Like we were big. We were a big family. It was nice.
I know. That was like the coolest thing I thought about vet school was like on day one, you walk into vet school and one of our professors, she comes in there and she was like, congratulations, everybody. You made it to like the peak of the mountain. She was like, you can all take a big breath because you no longer have to compete for anything. Like you guys have all worked your butts off to get here. Like y'all have been cutthroat, like y'all have been like climbing over each other to get to the top, and like you have been like it's been a struggle to get here. You have been like competing like constantly like against all your classmates, and now you're here. y'all can all take a deep breath. 'Cause there's no more competition. She's like, we're all just like chilling. We're just out. She was like, these are no longer your competition. We're all colleagues now.
Yeah.
She was like, everybody in this room is going to be your colleague one day. We're not competing with each other. And that was just like,
it's
I was like,
crazy.
Everybody was just like,
I remember that moment too.
I was like, that felt so good when she said that to me. I was like,
we went through the orientation week and I was like, woohoo, this is great. And then I vividly remember sitting in Physio 1 and I was in like the third row. I remember exactly where I was sitting and I was looking at the screen and I was like, holy crap. Like, I did it. Like, now what do I do? Like, this has been the goal for my entire life, literally since I was 5. And now I'm sitting here.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
what do I do now?
What do I do now? Like, what? And it was like, that was kind of hard to navigate a little bit because I was just like, holy crap. Like,
no, I know.
So,
I remember that feeling.
It's the craziest feeling. But then you figure it out and then you.
And then you get to clinics. Like I told you, and then I'm like,
now
we get
what?
to clinics, now what?
What do I do now? No, nothing will top the first day of showing up to work as a vet, though.
Oh, man.
The first day of showing up to work as a vet, and you're just you show up in like your little lunchbox and your
stethoscope, like kindergarten, like,
and you're like, I have my little backpack, and I'm like,
is there an adult to your adult?
And I show up and I'm like, it's like first day of school and I'm like, where's my desk? And I'm like, okay, who's in charge?
And then you get to the farm and you're like, oh crap, it's me.
I'm in charge.
And then your first appointment walks in and your heart is like racing and you're like, who's gonna make all the decisions? And then you're like, you realize it's you. It's like everybody's looking to you. So it was wild. Day 1 was wild as a vet. Yeah.
That's even us on clinics. Because like at Auburn, you do a lot of the client communication for sure to like help you bolster that skill before you get out. Yeah. And like walking to the first exam room in small animal and they're there to talk about like their hyperparathyroid dog and you're like oh, okay, like I need to answer your questions too. I'm like, this is wild.
They ask you a question and you're sitting there waiting for somebody else to speak and you're like, oh shoot, it's
that's me. Yeah. And then you hit them with I'll research that and get back to you.
Let me go ask somebody smarter than me.
Yeah.
Please hold.
The running joke on clinics right now is like, where's the senior adults? Because we are not the senior adult.
I need an adult to your adult, please.
Yeah.
And that still happens. Like there's still times when I'm like, I don't know. But I'll figure it out. Like that's.
I think clients though really appreciate when you can absolutely say it is always reasonable to tell a client.
For sure.
You never want to like. People can read through the BS, but so like if you really don't know something, you can just say, you know what, I've never seen this before. I don't even know what to tell you, but give me a day or two. I will talk to somebody. I'll take some pictures and I'll get back to you.
Right.
Yeah.
And they're like, cool. They don't even bat an eye.
Right, exactly.
It's way better than just like making up something fake.
I think that's a good point too. Like veterinary medicine in general, like stay humble and stay hungry and always keep your passion to learn. And I think you'll definitely succeed in this industry for sure.
Dan always says like you can't do veterinary medicine just because you love animals, or you can't do equine medicine just because you love horses, because at some point you're gonna get there where you're like, when I finished my internship, I was like, I could not touch another horse for like 2 months and totally be fine.
Oh yeah.
Like there are some days where you're just like,
so burnout.
You can get burnout, and that's normal. Like it's a normal part of it, but like you got to figure out,
because we're humans at the end of the day.
Yes, we are humans, and so you get burnout, you get frustrated, you get tired, and that's a very normal part of it. And it's like, okay, you got to weed through that and figure out, like we always said, like what's your why? Like why are you doing this? Yeah. And so like at school in Auburn, we have a Y board that sits in the front of our classroom, and everybody brings in a picture of like what's their why, and you nail it to the board, and then when you go to clinics, that board goes to the hospital with you. And so like you walk down the hallway and you can see it. And but it's got to be something more than just, oh, I love animals. Like it's got to be like, you've got to love the science or the puzzle of the medicine or serving the owners or doing something else. There's got to be something deeper than just, I'm an animal lover and I've always been an animal lover. Because sometimes you got to dig deep and you got to find it and you got to remember what it is.
Yeah.
And that's, I think a lot of misconceptions about veterinary medicine is like, oh, we're in it for the money. That's not true.
Super false.
It's not true.
Only some large animal. Super false.
Yeah, that's not true. Like
small animal, maybe a little bit more. You can make a little bit more money. But
yeah, but that's. I mean, it's still like it's just not, like, we don't do this, like, the amount of times that we get yelled at by people that we're just trying to help.
Money hungry, and,
like,
you're just trying to take my money.
Yeah, and I'm like, I wouldn't be doing this if I wanted to go make money and, like, be a millionaire. Like,
I could do anything else.
I could do literally anything
I'd be in
else.
business.
Yeah,
You know?
Yeah.
Oh, no, I would have gone to dental school, actually.
Yeah.
There you go.
No, you are done by 3:30 every day. You get an hour for lunch, and you work 4 days a week.
Yeah.
No dental emergencies, no
Nope.
nothing. You say, take an Advil, and I'll see you tomorrow.
Yeah. Yeah, like it's not that at all. And so,
Yeah.
like, I think, you have to kind of remember why you started this, and every step of the way. Like, vet school, I remember being like, oh my gosh, why did I do this? Like, some days I was just like, oh, but then, then something else happens, and you're like, it like sparks your curiosity and your passion again, and you're like, okay, like, this is why. Like, I love, for me, it's like, I love learning. I'm a nerd. I love to learn. I love to get different experience. And so, like, and I like to help horses feel better. Like, that's what I like. And so I find that, and I got to dig deep sometimes, and sometimes you need a break, and that's totally fine. Like, it's normal. But there are a lot of physical and mental demands and emotional demands with this job. But, I think, definitely putting your mental and emotional health at the forefront, and being willing to, like, put your foot down and be like, I can't come in today. Like, I'm just, yeah. I think it's the tide is starting to shift towards that, and not, especially in equine practice, like, not requiring people to be robots and work, 25/8 essentially. Like,
Yeah.
I think it's starting to shift, because it's just not sustainable, and it's not fair. Like, we don't expect human doctors to be available 24/7 for their clients, and answer a phone call at 2:00 in the morning when you're not on call. Like, we don't expect human doctors to do that. And so it's like, we're doctors too. Like,
Honestly,
and we're people.
I'm very ready for the breakthrough.
Yeah, it needs to
Very
happen.
ready for the breakthrough in equine medicine, for
Yeah.
there to be a huge separation between daytime medicine and nighttime medicine.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like emergency medicine to separate.
I definitely think it's coming.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot more practices hiring ER vets and
Yeah.
stuff for work-life balance.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's
We are all very ready for it.
we are. Yeah, and that's the thing.
It
It's
just
like,
helps you be a better all-around person. Like,
Yeah.
with your daytime medicine, you can be more present for your patients and your clients.
Yeah.
Like, because if you were on call last night and you ran 5 emergencies, you still have a full schedule of appointments today. You still have to be here at 9:30 a.m.
Yeah.
with a bright and shiny face, ready with a full burst of energy for your first patient.
and a working brain.
And a working
Yeah.
brain. And
Yeah.
it does not matter what you did for the last 13 hours. Doesn't matter.
Especially-
You still have a booked schedule.
Especially with large animal medicine, like, it's so easy to get hurt doing our job if you're not fully with it, and you're not awake, and you're not moving at a normal pace. Like, I remember being in my internship, and I was at the hospital for 37 hours with a foal, and everybody got there Monday morning, and they're like, okay, you ready to, like, roll in the truck and do ambulatory medicine? And I was like,
No. Like, no, I'm not.
I need a nap.
I have no, and I was supposed to
And
tech
you
for
feel like a
another
zombie.
doctor. Yeah.
You feel like you're
And I
like
was
literally
like-
heavy.
I
Yeah.
couldn't move. I
Yeah.
was like, I
Yeah,
don't
you're heavy.
think I
Yeah.
can keep her safe. Like, it's my job as, like, working as a technician to, like, keep that doctor safe. And I'm like, I don't think I can do that. Like, I can't. And so, like, that's huge. Like, I think that they're starting to kind of realize that, and you can't make good medical decisions when you're that tired.
Can confirm.
Yeah. So, like, I think that that's hopefully going to change and
Yeah.
continue to change. And I just know when I was going through vet school, they were like, equine medicine has terrible work-life balance, and you can't make any money, and yada, yada, yada. Like, don't do it, don't do it, don't do it. And I'm like, there are days where I don't have a work-life balance. I just work. But I think it's really important to choose a practice where they support you trying to have as much of a work-life balance as you can. Like, here we have a 4-day work week, which is huge. Since Zoe and I have been running the show ourselves this week, we have not, but that's okay.
Yeah.
We're just trucking along.
But it's Friday.
It's Friday. We're making it. So, like, picking a practice that's going to support that and give you those mental health days when you need them. And, remember last winter, I euthanized so many horses in January. It was weighing on me a lot. Like, I was starting to struggle, and reception picked up on that, and they were like, you're done. You're cut off. Like, you're not doing anymore. And I was like,
I remember that.
yeah. And so that was nice. Like, I didn't ask for help, but they saw that I needed help, and they were like, you're done. Like, take a break. And so that's huge. Like, just having a team that will back you up and be there for you when you need them, I think is big.
Yeah.
So.
Absolutely.
Yeah. But it's a great career. It's a fun time.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is a fun time. I would say most of the time it doesn't feel like a real job, so.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Being in the truck, it doesn't feel real. It just feels like you're doing what you love every day.
Just beat bopping around. So it's, but yeah, there's definitely, like, there's so many ways to go through and get your experience, and there's so many ways to get to vet school, and, like, everybody has a different journey. So, like, don't look at somebody else and that got in, and especially too, I should say, like, it is becoming exceedingly rare to get into vet school on your first try.
It's like, I think the average is 2.1 times to get into vet school, or at least it was a couple years ago. Obviously, I haven't applied to vet school in a long time. Yeah, it was 2.1 times when I applied. So I think it's super average to not get in on your first time. I think most people should expect to apply
at least
more
twice.
than once, and like to not get so discouraged and not get bummed out. And when you don't get in on your first try, if you don't get in on your first try, you just say, okay, well, it's more likely I'm going to get in on my second try, because statistically speaking, you are.
Yes. And they asked me during my interview at Auburn, they were like, okay, so what's your backup plan? And I was like, what do you mean? And they were like, what if you don't get in on your first try? Like, what are you going to do? And I was like, I'm going to, like, strengthen my application and apply again. And they were like, okay.
Yeah, well, they want to hear that. They want to hear that you don't just give up, because they basically they say, oh, well, if you just gave up after one time, you really didn't want it that bad. So.
And I remember sitting in my seat at vet school and being like, there are so many people that wanted this seat. And you kind of use it as a motivator to, like, keep going and do your best, because, like, there are, I mean, for every person that's sitting in a veterinary seat in school, like, there's 10 other people behind them that would have, like, cut throat to get that seat.
That would have wanted it. Yeah. No, I totally agree. I thought that I had the same thought so many times when I was in vet school, like when I wanted to quit, or when I was like I never, like, really wanted to quit, but I was always like, oh my God.
You have those thoughts, though.
When you're like, oh my God, I just hate this. And then you're like, no, someone else could be doing a better job at this thing. Like, why am I even here? And then you're like, nope, I gotta make the best of it. I gotta push through, gotta do it.
And vet school was so much fun. Like, I really
I've loved it. I'm gonna miss it. It's gonna be hard to graduate, and, like, all of our friends are gonna go across the country.
I absolutely loved vet school. It was the hardest, most enjoyable 4 years of my life.
And it went so fast.
The 4 years, I blinked, and it felt like it was 8 months long. Like, the 4 years felt like a total of 8 months. I blinked, it was over. I'm very sad. Very sad.
You make, like, your best friends. Like, I'm gonna cry thinking about it. Like, my vet school friends, like, oh my God, could not have gotten through without them. Like, still love them to pieces. Like, they're all in my wedding, I'm in their weddings. Like, we talk all the time. Like, most of them are not, like, we don't live in the same state, but like, it's just, you're trauma bonded.
Trauma bond to those people, and you just, I mean, those are just some of the best friends you're ever going to make. And also, I feel like it's also because you're older, too. You know, when you're, I don't know, I feel like the friends you make when you're older, they just stick more.
They stick. Yeah, for sure. So. But there's so many paths, and don't get discouraged if your path doesn't look like somebody else's, or you don't get in on the first try. Like, there's no right way to do it. Like, there's just, there's tips and tricks and, you know, things to think about and do for sure, but there's a million paths to get there. So
yeah. I definitely think that it's a great career, and you got to just, if you really want it that bad, you know,
just got to do it.
Just chase it as hard as you can.
it's but yeah, so if anybody has any like questions or other DVMs that have other experience and want to chime in and help, you know, aspiring veterinarians get it done, like please feel free to reach out and let us know, because it's a good topic. So thank you, Reagan, for being here and chiming in.
It was fun having a newbie on the podcast, like a different face around.
Right. New blood.
And like to have a recent applicant, or somewhat much more recent than
I know,
me.
that's
like the old lady.
crazy.
I'm the senior vet. Like,
But it hasn't even been that long, like, but it feels, I don't know.
It feels like forever ago.
I was thinking about it last night. I was like, dang, I'm coming up on 3 years. And I was like, huh, interesting.
I will have been out of school for 5 years. Yeah, weird. Like I still sometimes feel like all in the same go. I feel like I've been a vet for 1 year, and also I feel like I've been a vet for 15 years.
Yeah.
Like, because I've worked so many hours. It's like,
Yeah.
I think that's it for today. Thanks for listening in on another episode of the Equine Vet Connect. I don't know what we're going to be talking about next week. It'll be Caroline and Dan probably. Oh, they're doing dermatology next week.
Skin funk. Nice.